I said, people think I'm mad on fly traps, but in the lounge room I've got this big, you know, picture of Cedo-CEDIC, you know, the original Brookman road form before Ash Wednesday 2. We had 2 Ash Wednesday here. First one, they said, oh, it would never grow back, and of course we had a wet winter, it all grew back and it was worse. And then of course the DPI in their infinite wisdom decided to turn the soil upside down, back to front sort of thing. And I hardly ever seen a donkey orchid. You used to have donkey orchids with flowers the size of your hand. Hadn't seen them for years. They are starting to come back in the back blocks, but after a quarter of a century basically, yeah, if not 30 years. It's yeah, very bad. So don't, because you muck up the mycorrhizae in the ground. You never damage the mycorrhizae. That's their lifeline. Anyway, so this is your second parcel. It also will come with your two groups of seed. Your Wittecry, the largest tester in the genus. It will also have your Planchonii, which is our easiest germinated, sort of propeller sycamore type sort of thing with the embryo in the middle sort of thing. You can see that. So you can have a play with that. Next parcel will be 4, probably be the Gliad Minkawa, it will be Peltata, Foliosa Hookii sort of thing. And today I went out there and got you a few auriculatas, but it's a bit windy and stuff, so I might go back and get some more from another side or something, I don't know. It'll be enough for you to compare the two, the auriculatas with the Peltatas, and see the differences. Like Peltatas are all nutty one, small, nutty, pitted, whereas auriculata is more papery, rice grain-like, not so pitted if at all, sort of thing. Because it depends on all these different forms. Like we had like the Wimmera form and one round Mackenzie Falls, which is just basically red and green. It's really spectacular. A bit like the Canberra form of Binata, which is basically red and green and very sturdy sort of thing. So if you can get hold of the Canberra form of Drosera Binata, it's definitely one to die for, I would say. But I don't know if it's going on too long, but I think I've been through most of it. I just remind me to make sure that that other thing is in there. You've got the Fraser Island, you'll have the Stirling Ranges, you'll have the whatever the other one was, and the bog thing. So it should keep you in good stead. And then so the third parcel will basically come out just before, it'll be like an early Christmas present sort of thing. As I said, everything dies in the RC around about the 3rd week of October, as you can tell. Everything's coming on so rapidly, and this is like, we're going to have a few gully winds sort of as it struggles to get into the next season. You always have gully winds around the time it goes from one season to the next sort of thing. So yeah, it's been a long day for me. I'm dropping heather off, getting these done and everything else. So unfortunately, this one has the Steve Clemetia article in it. I got under Steve Clemetia when his mum was just finishing off, and he was taking over, and he sent me some fantastic service in it. Oh, copper top, lovely flower, glowing yellow flower. I didn't. Back in the day, you didn't really know how to grow, really grow these things. There's a lot like in the early 90s. Franz Fuchs sent me his box of 15, went straight through our quarantine untouched because it came from one botanic garden to basically another botanic garden, basically, sort of thing. It turned up in my letterbox, sort of thing, unscathed because it had a botanical garden sticker on it, sort of thing. Had 15 species in it, 7 of them were new to science, and I had to, my arse on fire to find out how to grow. I'd never grown a Mexican ring regular before, basically. I'd only been playing around with primiflores and things like that, and planifolias and things like that. It was a whole new epoch for me, I suppose. So I learned very rapidly in the next year and a half to 2 years what they liked and what they didn't like. They didn't like magnesium, calcium, carbonate. They didn't like carbonate. They didn't like magnesium, calcium, even worse. Basically came to the idea they did like granulated chalk. It had to be like granulated chalk. They seemed to grow a little, actually it was facultative. They would actually grow better if you actually had granulated chalk, a few millimetres in size, I did 3 or 4 millimetres in size, little granules. It does make them, of course then I discovered later on that the I3 minus iron used to make them flower. Tincture of iodine, if you can get it in the right dilution sort of thing, will trigger them into flowering and flowering and flowering, where one flower every like 2 weeks sort of thing. Just played a trick on the old late Cedo-CEDIC, gave him one, dosed it up, gave it to him, put it in his greenhouse. It flowered for about eight months. Every 2 weeks a new flower for about 8 months until it burned itself out. Oh, the fun times, yeah. Because Cedo, how Cedo got into our society, he turned up at one of our shows and he looked at this thing and said, my darling Tony's better, or my cephalodes and my darling are better than those, and you know, our secretary at the time said, oh, don't believe it, prove it to me. So he turned up the next day on the Sunday and he won the grand champion, I think. I think he won one of the big prizes. I think he won grand champion with, I think they slightly bent the rules because they were so impressed that, and of course he had darling Tonia and cephalotus for a few years then, and then in one show it collapsed and all his darling Tonia started collapsing. So whether they sprayed, you know, they sprayed it with something or it caught something at the show, you know, I don't know. But they used to go around titivating with the little spray bottles, and I'm thinking, yeah. It's a bit like that thing. Let's see if it's still running, still recording. It's a bit like that thing with the liverworts, you know, pots turning up, festering in the, you know, what are these beads in there? They osmocotes. No, they're snail eggs, and of course 20 to 25 years later we find out in a Victorian bulletin that they were osmocotes. So did the person know what they were talking about, or was it a misdirection? Yeah, take your pick, I think. But I think it's more like a, you know, don't tell them we're fertilising. Don't tell them we're fertilising these plants. Yeah, you know, 2 more minutes left to go. So yeah, I think that's what it is. You know. It goes against the grain of, you know, not having any nutrients, blah blah blah. And this thing about the Regia thing, where the heck did you get that from? That they starve themselves. Now where does that come from? I mean, doesn't that go against the grain? I mean, where's your proof? First of all, it's just bought it in a shop. Did someone just fob you off with this story? Was it another one of these ingrained stories? It's just come out of South Africa. You read it in a CPN somewhere. It's a bit like, you know, when I went off the internet in 2000 and whatever it was, and I came back on in 2008. In that space of less than a decade, suddenly we've gone from peat and sand to peat and perlite. Where the perlite idea came from, don't know who came up with it, why they came up with it. No one seems to talk about it. It seems like it's come out from the ether or something. I don't know. Anyway, to wrap up, I suppose, it's going to run out of it. I think you're going to have some fun times with it, with this parcel anyway, so you'll be able to make some videos out of it anyway. So I'll try and stick this on USB if it will fit, and try and, I don't know which series to put on these USB. I might end up doing 2 series, or maybe even 3 series. I don't know if I've got enough USBs, but I want to put the nice one that goes through lots of different things, like you can see the pearl tartar in the wild, so in the, you know, the basal rosette sort of stage. I put some Whittigrai and indigo with the Whittigrai seed. What else? Yeah, that missing clip that didn't somehow get to the other USB. I'll put that one on, and that has a few Planchonii on the track there. So, but Planchonia, if you want to see Planchonia, really, Kangaroo Island, right down the middle of Kangaroo Island, masses of them. You just have to pull over the car. There's just so many between the American River region. It's the major highway down the middle of Kangaroo Island. You just can't miss them. There's just millions of them, and they're really good ones too, you know. Fantastic looking, you know, colour and everything, and robustness. As I said, there seems to be something there. It's like with all these plants, rhubarb, gunnerer, asparagus is a true halophyte, by the way, yeah. And if you notice with the glid, there's some little sand fires, little micro sand fires, so implying that the soil is somewhat salty, or appears to be salty. Anyway, this is enough of this. There's lots to think about. You probably won't be able to go to sleep tonight. You'll be thinking so much about all this stuff. I know what it's like when you're young. Okay. See ya. Enjoy your parcel.